Good evening, welcome back to the channel. Well, might be a slightly different time frame when this video gets posted, but you know, it's currently evening now, so I figured go ahead and get the niceties out of the way. So this evening, I'm gonna go ahead, I need to make some adjustments on my Fummins. My no boost fueling is a little too aggressive. About 8-9 months ago, I went ahead and actually had turned the no boost fueling up, as on a cold soak motor, not like northern cold, but been sitting overnight, kind of cold. Motor was having issues starting unless I touched my foot on the accelerator just slightly enough to get it to just slightly depress the throttle and move the throttle linkage back. At the time I hadn't thought about moving the idle up, because for what I was doing the idle was fine. But yeah, I would just have to just slightly depress the throttle to get it to start. Otherwise it would just crank and crank and crank. So I went ahead and just turned the no boost fueling up like a full turn, and that corrected it for a while. So yeah, so about, actually almost pushing a year ago, I had turned the no boost fueling up a full screw in to combat that, and it helped even when it was actually decently cold out. So I'd originally had the no boost fueling, holy crap, fueling turned all the way back, or what I believe to be all the way back, as I have Power Driven Diesel's AFC Live. So that way I've got that fueling control on it. Yeah, so I'd moved the screw in just slightly. Basically, Power Driven's instructions are turn it in until it touches the AFC Spring, and then just kind of set the lock nut on it. And so that's what I did. Then, let's see. Basically, you just want to feel it. So you feel a little bit of tension on it. Turn this in a little further. So I think I got it. It's pretty much back to where I had it about a year ago. Actually, my back up a little bit. So the reason I'm doing this, as I've noticed when the truck is, so like for example, if I'm sitting somewhere idling for a while, if I decide to sit in the truck with the truck idling, waiting on someone or something to pass, and then I go to accelerate, I notice a little bit of unburnt fuel coming out. So I'm basically setting this back to there, to where I previously had it, to test to see if maybe it's just wet stacking because it's too much fuel, and because the truck's just sitting idle, it's not actually burning it fully, because it's just sitting idle, not with no load on the motor kind of deal. So that's not the case, then I need to start looking at to have a barrel in the P-pump that is starting to stick when it sits idle and warm, or for whatever reasons, injector it's sticking. So you have to mildly excuse the wiring disaster. I still have other stuff I want to try to relume, so this is still right here is the factory Ford wiring. This is the map sensor plug. I have to refine the map sensor because I do want to try to get that part of my 05 cluster to work again, because currently it's pegged way below 0 because there's nothing plugged into it. So I do have AC set up on the swap. I got that going this year. I drove it the first about year and a half without AC. I can tell you, one summer through heat in South Texas, I wanted AC again. Super, to me, simple setup. Again, I have wiring down here that needs to get loomed up and cleaned up because it looks crappy. But that's the stuff for the AC wiring. I had a mild issue with the AC system when I put it in. Had everything charged up, couldn't get the compressor to kick, couldn't nothing. So I was tracing down all the wires. Okay, is there breaking it somewhere? It ended up being just a bad compressor out of the box. But of course, I owned the compressor for more than 12 months before I tried to put it on, and it was out of warranty. So, lesson learned: if you buy parts, go ahead and get them put on as soon as possible. Otherwise, your warranty will expire before you get the chance. So, running a alternator off a 6-liter, got a additional ground there for it. The hot side intercooler pipe is actually the cold side intercooler pipe off the 2nd gen Dodge, which I got with this motor. Exhaust manifold is a 3-piece manifold from Diesel Auto Power. It is on a T4 foot, as the turbocharger I'm running currently, which is a BorgWarner S363 SXE. So it is a 63-68 with a 0.83 divided housing on it. For injectors, I have 5x14 Diesel Auto Powers. They are the aftermarket bodies because I didn't want to have to deal with a core, and they've been fine thus far. Of course, ARP studs. Those are just the conventional ARPs. Those are actually on their now 4th torque, which technically not supposed to be able to do, but I went ahead and did it anyways. Previous mistakes when I first had converted this truck, I put studs in it, didn't send the head off, it blew the gasket in like 450 miles. Retorqued it again, ended up not getting a sensor all the way snugged up. That sensor backed out over time and puked all the oil out, and basically I had to have the motor rebuilt. And then, so that was the 3rd time that iteration, and then the 4th was I was towing it like 10,000 pounds, pulling a car trailer and another 3/4 ton pickup, and had an injector basically stick partially open and melted it didn't melt the piston, but it swelled it up enough that it scarred the cylinder wall. So the motor had to come back out, had that one hole punched out further and sleeved. And so when I put the head back on, I used the same set of ARP 2000s for the 4th torque, and I think I actually even over torqued them for what it is, and thought of, well, if it's going to stretch, I want to put a little more oomph on it, and that's what I did with it. So I think this time that they've been torqued, I want to say I did it at like 150 foot-pounds. For these, for a 12-valve, it's supposed to be 125 for the final torque, but I went ahead and just upped it a little bit because I read that you can, within 10-15% go over. So I didn't really want to take the truck back apart again because I'd had it apart twice in like 30 days. So I was a little frustrated with it at that point. So I just went ahead and snugged it down, and probably almost 20,000 miles later, no issues with it. For ventilation, I am running 2 dual valve cover breathers with 3/4 inch heater hose attached to them, running down here by the intercooler down here. The billet tappet cover that I have is not baffled, and so just running 180 fittings off of it, it was still just dripping out oil all the time. So I blocked those off on the tab cover and then switch to this style. Climb back up. So just a 160 horse P pump. I believe it has 4K governor springs in it. I bought the complete running motor. Have no idea the exact history on it. This pump either has 150 or 300 plus thousand miles on it. It still cranks up, runs good. So I'm not terribly worried about it. You know, again, I still have wiring rat's nest to clear up. I'm in the process of figuring out if I'm going to run dual battery and how I want to do it, because 2 Group 65s do not fit with my cold side intercooler pipe and where the PCM is and all that. So I got to figure out whether I bite the bullet, go buy some like Group 34s, or if I just go ahead and just get a single Group 31, because it has more cold cranking amps than a 65. But on the cold side, this is the hot side pipe off of a 2nd gen. I just trimmed the ends here, and these are I want to say either 30 or 45 degree boots from silicone intakes, and they've been good. I've had them for the last probably 24,000 miles or so. Same with the one that's coming off the charger. It's a 2.5 to 3 inch 90, because that turbo right there I originally had on the 6 liter that was in this truck at one point. So I was basically, when I did the swap, trying to reuse stuff I already had if I felt like I wanted it. It does pretty good for towing, as long as you keep the RPMs above like 2100 RPM, which with 34.5s and 373s is about 75. So, you know, it varies. I do have on this motor the fleece coolant bypass, so knock that back freeze plug out and it runs it up into the thermostat housing. Just trying to keep that back cylinder cooler as much as possible. So on the interior of the truck, I do have to try to block out some of the sun. I apologize. I have a 4-pillar pod that I've had for as long as I've had the pickup, almost. It's ISPRO fuel pressure, oil pressure, pyrometer, and then it's a Hewitt Industries dual boost. At some point I will get, there's a dryer that I believe Kennedy Diesel has, so I can hook up into this manual gauge and not burn the gauge up. Reading exhaust back pressure, because the soot and heat and all the pulsing and such that comes from exhaust will kill them. So that's on my to-do list. My manifold has already been retapped again for that, as I have the manifold flipped up. I'm just using what was the pyrometer port. That'll be for back pressure, and then I retapped for the EGT probe to be on the back half of the motor. And then on the column, autometer, gauge pod, and then a ISPRO coolant temp, because, well, yeah, factory dash has a coolant temp gauge. It's a dumb gauge. It'll be in the middle if it's at 150 degrees or 215 degrees, whereas this will tell me where I am between. This is transmission temp, which, because I went handshaker, it is not hooked up, which is also causing this part of the cluster to say check gauges quite frequently. And then this right here is the position that the boost gauge goes to, because the map sensor is not plugged in. I do have the tach working with the DCS tone ring. Oil pressure gauge, I just went ahead and put that wire in the harness to ground. So on my truck it's a brown wire off the plug on the inner fender well. It's like a 8 or 10 wire plug. The brown wire off of that, if you put it to ground, it will make that read as if it's seeing the proper amount of oil pressure, because I have an actual oil pressure gauge on the motor. I did, on this swap, retain the electronic shift 4-wheel drive, so I do have 2-wheel drive, 4 high and 4 low working. It's just basically a wire you have to ground to make 4 low work. If anybody wants to know what that is on an 05 to 07, I do have that diagram I can tell you which wires to go towards. I do have the reverse lights wired up into the factory harness with the NV4500, so when I click it reverse, it does light my reverse lights up. And then voltmeter here, that's the only glow shift gauge I still have. Trailer brake controller, and then this is AFC Live. It comes with this Velcro mount, so you can take it off if you need to. Just all the heat in South Texas and sitting it has caused it to loosen up. So this knob up front on the stage 1, this is your max fueling. So when you're wide open throttle, this is like what limits the max amount of fuel. And then this little knob over here, this is what controls your fuel rate. So how quickly the AFC foot moves forward is controlled by that small knob. Like I said, converted the truck to a handshaker. It is an NV4500 out of another Dodge. Put the 1 3/8 input from South Bend and a towing twin disc. So, along with putting in the NV4500, did add the third pedal there. I have not trimmed down the brake pedal or tried to get the one out of a ZF6 truck. I haven't really actually ran into any issues catching both pedals at the same time, other than maybe once when I first did the swap, so it's not that big a deal to me. I really just want the pickup to drive. Aesthetics are, I like function over, flair, so to speak. So for that, all I did was I just found a clutch pedal assembly for a 05 F250 that came with a ZF6, running a master cylinder that would be for a ZF6 truck. And then I have South Bend's, so I had purchased at one time their master and slave cylinder setup that's already pre-bled for a truck my brother had, because he was having clutch pedal engagements with the truck he had that was an NV4500, and I had ordered it. It showed up, he hadn't even had a chance to put it in, and he got T-boned. The truck was totaled, so I just happened to have it because I paid for it. So I took the stainless braided line out of that, used that slave cylinder. It ended up leaking, so I just got another one for an NV4500 Dodge pickup from like 2000, swapped it in, and it's been fine since. Other than for those of you that are familiar with manual transmission Ford Super Duties, there is a clip in the master cylinder that holds the clutch pedal push rod. The one on this one, I want to say it's a master cylinder I got from 1A Auto, like almost 2 years ago now. That little retainer that holds the push rod broke, so if you let the clutch all the way out, it would basically come up all the way to the dash. I currently have it max travel limited with zip ties. I have another master cylinder for it. I just haven't felt like taking it apart and bleeding a clutch because it's never really fun to do. And so far, I did this like 2 months ago, 3 months ago now, and it's still working just fine. So before it does get kind of chilly down here, I probably will go ahead and swap it over. So just a little walk around on the outside. Wheel and tire on this truck, it's a Raceline 17x9, -12 offset, wrapped in 315 7017 Firestone Destination MT2s. Got the snazzy Fummins diesel badge from Truck Emblem Warehouse. I actually got this one off of Amazon. So I mean, the truck's gotten used, got dings and stuff in it. Had a horse bounce off the side of it. 17 style mirrors from Sippo. My only gripe with them is I've had them less than 2 years, and this is already all faded out pretty bad. It is a flatbed truck now, didn't used to be. The stock bed, the rails underneath were rusting out, and the Dorman kit is like $330. and I happened to come across this bed for 500. The only thing with it is this bed was for a cabin chassis pickup and a long bed dually, so I cut it down, narrowed it, shortened it, and then had to cut the rails underneath off, bring them out, weld them back in, and then weld basically little stilts underneath to get it to sit on the frame rails. As you know, pickup frames, if you were unaware, have, you know, they're not straight flat. Cabin chassis trucks, you know, they are just a straight rail that are 34 inches apart. Pickups are like 38 and a half, 39 inches between the rails, and they have like a hump in them where the rear axle would be. So had to do that. It was a nice project for me. It gave me something I enjoyed tinkering with. Went through a lot of cutting wheels and welding wire, but all in good fun. Basically just your basic traction bar on it. I'll probably change it to something different because it's got Heims on both ends. You know, just a 4 to 5 inch turn down. Nothing crazy. I still have to finish like this stuff up, go through and re-clean all this up. Thunderstruck rear bumper, you know, LED lights on the flatbed, and then these right here are my reverse lights. So when I go and click the truck in reverse, these come on. I will probably still put a pair of white LED lights up here at some point. That's one of those that's down the road. I have those going, so I'm good legality-wise. Apologize for the wind. You know, fifth wheel rails, as I do have a flatbed trailer that is a fifth wheel hitch, so I have that for that because I had constructed the trailer that used a fifth wheel hitch before I constructed the flatbed. Did forget to mention, suspension wise on this pickup, it is just stock radius arms still. These are 2.5 inch leveling coils from Tough Truck. They're the heavy duty ones, so they've got like a 700 some odd pound heavier weight rating than their regular 2.5 inch leveling coil. Fox 2.0 IFPs all the way around on the truck. I do have on the back 5 inch precision metal fab blocks. I did have airlift airbags on it with like a 5 inch spacer to kind of make it so it was in the right range. But my factory leafs back there are wore out. So if I had little air in the bags, it would bottom out, and it rode worse than a covered wagon. So I took those out, trying to put short spacers on, and then it so happened to be in a year and a half, one of the bags decided it wanted to spin the sleeve that held the bolt in. So I got to come up with something different for that, or just put new springs on. All right, so that's gonna conclude this video. Sorry about being a little bit later than earlier and about all the wind. You know, we're expecting rain over the next couple days, which down here will be nice because we've been in burn ban for the last number of weeks, just past the 4th of July to now. So yeah, we'd like a little bit of rain, so we got a little bit of breeze because of all that. So if you like this video, you know, please give me that thumbs up. If there's something you didn't like, or something you'd like to see in the future, you know, put it in the comment section below, and if you could, please subscribe. That'd greatly appreciate it, and have a good one.